This is Betsy Goldstein, and on today's episode of 6 1 Forward, I'm joined with Judge Laurel Beatty Blunt. So, when I was going through my deep dive, I ended up with your grandma.
Mhm.
I had no idea the rich history and how far back it goes.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
It isn't just your parents, it's
yeah.
generational for you.
Mhm,
Can you
mhm.
talk a little bit about your grandma?
So great-grandma,
Great grandma.
great-grandma, yeah. So what happened was, first of all, the thing that I wanna point out here is that I know all this because, 1, they told me, and 2, I asked questions.
Okay.
And so I encourage everyone to talk to their family and ask them questions because it's one thing to read history in a book, and it's another thing to actually see how it impacted people's lives. Someone that you know, someone that you love, and then you see how it impacted your life too,
Right. The
right?
chain reaction.
So on my dad's side, my great grandma, her name was Mamie Moore, and my grandma and my grandpa moved to Ohio. From my grandma and my great grandma were Kansas. My grandpa was originally from Oklahoma.
Okay.
And then so they moved to Ohio. My grandfather started out shiny shoes, still very segregated, even, in Columbus. Didn't matter. It was above the Mason-Dixon line.
Right.
And so that's how he started out. They saved their money, and then they started a restaurant. And it was called the Novelty Food Bar. And then there were in the 40s and 50s in Columbus, there were 2 restaurants that Black people could go to, and my grandparents was one of them. So while they're operating this restaurant, my great grandma did a lot of the cooking. It was a family affair on down to my dad grew up there being a busboy. And so, my grandfather used to tell me like, "Oh yeah, our options were so limited. So I would have one crowd at midnight and
Oh my
another crowd
gosh.
at noon." Because, there you couldn't differentiate based
Right.
on class because the color of your skin
Was a differentiator.
preempted all of that,
Right.
right? So, one thing that I really admire about them and that I think I carry into my life is so, they believed in doing good while doing well. So, with a lot of the proceeds of their restaurant, they were very, very, very involved in the civil rights movement. And I think about my great grandma, Mamie Moore, you know, Columbus used to be ruled kind of by titans, if you
Mhm.
will, the Lazarus family, the Schottenstein
Wolf.
family, the Wolves, right? And so I asked my grandma one time, and we called my great grandma Mama Mamie. I said, "How was it that Mama Mamie could call Mr. Lazarus and not only get him to pick up the phone, but also give money to the NAACP?"
What was their answer?
but but that tells you about her tenacious
Right.
personality. And also what I see in myself is that, she was like, "Okay, I'm a Black woman in the 40s. I have restrictions,
Right.
but I'm gonna work around it." You know what I mean? In order to get to where I wanna go, I'm gonna work around this. I'm still gonna find a way. And that's my attitude too. My videos started because I just saw how wrong people were.
So let's talk about that. How
Mhm.
wrong people are in the video series.
Mhm, mhm.
The video series came to light because you were reading legal experts, online legal experts, right? That don't really know what they're talking about. And by that, I mean, I read someone and I'm like, you're not a medical expert. You're not a but everybody all of a sudden is these things or
Oh,
are these
yeah.
things.
Mhm.
So it was to really put truth out in the world.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. So you decided you were gonna do these. I
Mhm.
call them must-see TV.
Oh,
I do, and
thank you.
not everybody even understands what that means because they aren't of an era where they remember, Friends in ER, but I
I
call
remember
them
that, yeah.
must-see TV. So as soon as one drops and I'm married to an attorney, I'm sitting on the couch and we're watching it together
Okay.
because I believe you have the most unique way of explaining it in a relatable way that is understandable. You're not talking down to people. You're not making them feel less than. You're bringing them along in all of that. Being married to an attorney, I don't even necessarily get that all the time. So I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
All right, so you're doing these. What have you found since you started it? And how many are you doing now?
I try to post every day.
Do you really?
I try. But you know, what is it? Shoot for the moon, you reach the
Right?
stars or whatever. So I see out of my community work,
Yeah.
and particularly online, everybody thinks that they're a direct descendant of Thomas Jefferson,
That's right.
and they had some contribution to the Constitution.
Correct. Uh-uh.
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 And I think probably one of my favorite videos is the one that talks about the First Amendment versus cancel culture, because we have it so confused that the First Amendment just means I can go out anywhere and say what I want.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
is not right. First of all, the First Amendment protects you against government action.
I have seen this video. Yep.
Very important delineation right there. Then, First Amendment is not going to protect you against consequences.
Oh.
You know what I mean? People that for some reason choose to go into a crowd of people that they know disagree with them and shout something, you can't shout at the First Amendment while you're getting your butt whooped.
That's right.
The First Amendment is not going to save you
That's right.
instantly.
Correct.
So, you know, it's very important that our electorate, no matter what you believe in, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, understands that.
For me, especially in the last 12 months, there were times that I was really worried and scared. And I would watch your videos and I felt a sense of relief or a sense of calm. How have you felt over the last 12 months about the pressure on the court system, the amount of issues that you've seen that you know are not legal? What has that been like for you, especially as a judge?
Frustrating,
Sure.
scary at times. One, because there seems to be a lesser respect for authority, respect for certain positions. I blame some of the politicians for that, though, honestly,
Mhm.
because when we look at a lot of our politicians now, they aren't acting in a way that we would want our children to behave.
100%.
And I think that encourages it. And one thing that I would always do on the bench, I don't care if your house was being foreclosed on or if you were accused of murder, I treated you with respect. You came in my courtroom. Hello, Mr. Such and Such. Hello, Miss Such and Such. Da 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 da. Do you understand what's happening? Because that's what everyone deserves. I mean, it's just basic. Yeah, very basic. And then I want it to be an example for people in the courtroom, for people in the jury, for lawyers, for students that come or whatever, because they're just not seeing that right now. That is also, though, Betsy, one thing that I consider myself fortunate growing up around politics is because I have seen a different type of politics.
You remember it.
Yes, because you know, I remember my dad and a man named Bill Batchelder, who was very, very much a Republican. My dad was very much a Democrat. But they had a respect for each other. When it came to arguing policy or election time, yeah.
Right.
But it was still cordial. And in between time, they respected each other and worked together to try and move the needle forward for the people of Ohio. And we don't see that anymore.
On any level.
Right.
Is Is there a concern or as things escalate, there's been attacks, verbal attacks on judges, there
Mhm,
have been physical attacks on judges.
mhm.
How do you think that stops? Where does that stop?
I don't know. Betsy, when I maybe like my first 6 months on the bench, at the time, I was living by myself. I was single and living by myself, and I got a letter from a rapist no one could find. And it was very detailed about a date we went on,
Oh my god.
from what we had for our meals to what I had on. Like, this was a while ago. So
Sure.
he said, like, I had on some Ugg boots and some apple bottom jeans, and like, and that was just the first fourth of the first page. And then it got
Really scary.
very X rated. But what I realized, even though I was scared, I still wanted to go back to work
There you go.
the next day.
There you go.
So that showed me how much I liked my job. And then, true to me, found a way around it. But I wound up doing something I never thought that I would do, which is owning a gun.
Really?
I was so fortunate because when that happened, again, from treating everyone with respect, the Franklin County deputy sheriffs came to my office like almost immediately. They got me in. At the time, you still had to have a CCW
Sure.
license. They got me into a CCW class that was full. I was in one the very next day at a place that actually made guns. So I had, the trigger pull is for me.
Huh.
You know what I mean? And so, because I said, if I'm going to own a gun, I'm going to own a gun where, I'm going to know what to do with it. And so I worked my way around it so that I could keep doing the job that I really liked.
That was the last thing I expected you to talk about today or to say is that you're a gun owner and that you have a specified gun just for you.
Yeah, and you know what I find, that that's one of the things that I have noticed a lot about our society, is that we don't give a lot of room for the unexpected.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I'm a Black female Democrat, right? So then there's all these things that I'm supposed to be or not supposed to be based on that. And then you add judge on top of that. And, sometimes it makes me feel very boxed in because I'm not supposed to own a gun.
That's right.
I'm not supposed to really, really, really love this rapper named Glorilla. You know what I mean? All these things I'm not supposed to do or enjoy or whatever, but I do them anyway.
Good.
Hmm.
So before you were on the bench, or now you're on the bench, but
Hmm.
prior to that, you didn't start off, you were in private practice,
Yes. Hmm.
but you also worked around voting.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
I worked for Jennifer Bruner. She's now
Yes.
on the Supreme Court, but she was Ohio Secretary of State at the time. It was right after, it was during the McCain Obama presidential election, and Ohio had been kind of scarred from the kind of scandal or rumors or whatever about the prior presidential election. So it was very, very exciting to be um, in the office at that time, but it also gave me the skill to make sure of neutrality. You know what I mean? Because my job was to work with both sides. Because at the end of the day, we just needed a clean election and a clear winner if
Right.
we could. And so part of that was even the perception of fairness. So both sides had to feel that they had a fair shot in Ohio.
Right.
Then it was also very interesting working there because it's a statewide office, and you really get to see some of the differences and the diversity in our state. Because man, like, some of the rural counties are so very different, and have much fewer resources than some of our urban counties. And so that job gave me the opportunity to see that firsthand. And then I just think, Betsy, like all of these experiences, dealing with all these different types of people from all walks of life is all comes blends in. And that is how I can be relatable on my videos.
100%.
Yeah, because it's the experience with lots of different types of people, but it's also just the desire to educate, not advocate, educate, and to get people back to thinking. Because what is happening in our scrolling culture is that, we just, 90 seconds of this. Okay, on to the next 90
That's
seconds,
right.
and it doesn't leave room for a lot of thought.
No.
Or especially critique. You can forget all
No.
about that. Yeah. Mhm.
So, growing up in a political household,
Mhm.
how has that shaped you beyond those being able to be neutral,
Mhm.
understanding how to get around things? What did it shape for your personality?
Um,
Determination?
well, it starts with what we started calling them in my house gentleman skills. Um, and gentleman skills, like for my son Spencer is looking people in the eye,
Right.
um, opening doors, a firm handshake.
Yep.
Those are just things that it's just plain
Hey.
old body language and the
Right.
way humans operate. The signals that you give as a first impression and things like that.
Right.
Those were things that I had to learn very, very early on. I didn't finish my story, Betsy. So let me tell you. Okay, so my grandfather, he starts out shining shoes. They had this restaurant.
Was it on Long Street?
It was on Long Street. Mhm.
Where was it on Long?
I don't know what the address was, but it was Long in Washington.
Okay.
And so um then you fast forward to when I'm a little girl, my dad's being sworn in for the first time in 1980. I was in first grade. And I remember seeing my grandfather so emotional, but it was because he said, I started out shining the shoes for the men going into the state house. And now my son is going in as one of them.
That's unreal.
So think about one, I'm seeing history personified, and I'm also seeing progress right there in front of my face. You know what I mean?
Right there.
So that's a big thing. Um, and then my dad served for 19 years. Then my stepmom took over his seat. I still argue that she should have been speaker because she flipped the house,
That's
but
right.
she was term limited at the time. And now she is in Congress. Um, but it has been very interesting, Betsy, in that, you know, I appreciate that she's in Congress. But, when we're at grandparents' day at my kid's school, I'm like,
It's a lot.
I understand you want to know her position in Iran, but I need her to be
We
looking at the second grade science
That's
project,
right.
please.
And she's there for all of it.
Yes, yes, yes. But so I've been at the school throwing some elbows a couple
I
times
bet. Like, back off.
because just for that hour or
Be
two,
normal.
we need her to be Congresswoman Grammy.
That's right. So your dad was one of, he went to OSU,
Mhm,
graduated from law school,
mhm.
and was having trouble finding, or firms at that time were not hiring African American lawyers, and so he started his own law firm,
Yes,
which ended up being a large law firm.
right. So, when my dad went to OSU Law School, they had a Black person and a woman in every other class.
Every other.
Right. So, law school's 3 years.
Yep.
So his second year, he was the only Black person, and a woman named B. Sowald was the only woman, in the whole law school. So, no, there were so when he and he was also told by the dean, "Your kind typically doesn't do well here."
You're kind.
Yeah. So, yeah, so no, when he graduated,
No.
no opportunities, um, at law firms, and so what he ultimately ended up doing was, buying a building, and then he would rent out the space to other Black attorneys.
That's awesome.
And then so, for example, there was a Black attorney named Clenzo Fox. Oh, man, Mr. Fox was a legend, and I'm so glad I got to be around him, because all of those lawyers practiced in different areas, and Mr. Fox was, he did probate, but, you know, from Mr. Fox, I got to hear stories because Mr. Fox was even older than my dad, and I got to hear stories like, yes, when I graduated from law school, there was one landlord in Columbus that would rent an office to a Black attorney, but you had to go to Congressman Chalmers P. Wiley, get Congressman Wiley basically to, sign off on you, and then this one landlord would rent you a room to operate your office out of.
In the entire city.
Yes, and then there was another attorney, Matt Eldridge, and he practiced primarily in municipal court. But from him, he had served in Vietnam War. I think he had two Purple Hearts actually. But from him, I heard about how Vietnam soldiers were the Black soldiers were oftentimes put in the front, and then when they came home, they still were treated certain ways, couldn't go certain places, were not afforded the GI Bill and things like that. So that law firm for me, it was, I joke and say that my family believes in child labor because, the summer after 8th grade, my brother and I, we were working 40 hours in
In
that
the
law
law
firm, girl. Yes. Um, but it taught me so much about life, and it taught me so much about how the law impacts people's lives. And so here's another area, Betsy, that, people want to talk about federal court, the US Supreme Court all the time. And I get it. There are big courts that impact us as a nation. But I don't care who you are, what race, what class, what gender, what religion, what whatever. Your state and local courts are the ones that are the most likely to impact your life. And of those state and local courts, it's specifically domestic relations, or what we call in Ohio municipal court. Because municipal court has traffic,
Mhm.
it has landlord tenant, it has small claims. So that's going to be, I don't care if you're driving your Pinto or your Porsche. If you get a traffic ticket, you're going through Muni Court.
Period.
Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
If you, unfortunately, we have a high divorce rate. Divorce is love and hate, money, property, and children. No one signs up to have to deal with domestic relations court. But if you do, it's really important who is there and how it works.
Right.
So you have to appreciate that state and local courts are the ones that are going to impact your life more likely than the US Supreme Court.
100%.
Mhm.
When did you know you wanted to be an attorney? Did you know right away?
I think it was just so comfortable from those child labor years,
You're
Betsy.
like, I've been a paralegal.
Yes, yes.
I know
I
how to
know how to
do
file. I know how to
I know how to
start
do
Yes.
discovery. All of this. You were like,
Yeah.
I got this.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Did you think you wanted to be a judge?
I did not start out that way, but what happened was I noticed that two judges, it was John Connor and Eric Brown. They were running for higher courts. And so I was like, ooh, if they win, there's going to be a vacancy. and so I just prepared myself. And then back then, that was when Governor Strickland was governor, and he had a different process. His process was closer to the process to become a federal judge. So I filled out this gargantuan packet and wrote my legal autobiography. And then I think it was an interview that was an hour and a half with 11 people and me.
Was it really?
Yeah. It's the longest hour and a half of my life.
Did you know them?
I knew some of them.
Right?
Um, but because it was Governor Strickland, he had people from all over Ohio and from lots of different areas. So, he had a union representative. I mean, there were people there from everywhere. So I didn't know everybody.
So you were appointed the first time and then you had to run.
Yes, appointed 2009,
That's right.
and then I had to run in 2010.
And you won handedly, but what was it like running an election? Did you like
know,
it?
Here's the thing. Running for election, I grew up around it, but girl, let me tell you, when it is you, it is something totally different
Uh-huh.
when it's you. That's first off. And then I have also applied to be a federal judge twice. So, that's an appointment process. If I had to pick for me, because there's been an age-old debate. Should judges be elected or appointed? And for me, I prefer election.
Really?
I do.
I think it's a more fair way.
With the election, I can get up every day and say, I'm going to Dublin, I'm going to Grove City,
That's right.
I'm going to Linden, I'm going to Clintonville. I can do all these things to try and keep my job, right? When I applied for that federal appointment, I wrote my legal autobiography and then just felt like I was sending it into the hinterlands, and there could be like a super serious meeting about it, or two senators might see each other in the bathroom and talk about like Social Security and a judge spot, and
that's
it.
And there's the
Yeah,
decision.
yeah.
Beyond being on the bench, you've also been at Michigan,
Yes.
which, with everything going on at Ohio State, we'll forgive. But talk a little bit about that, if you would, about your time. Were you a professor for a semester
Mhm.
or a guest lecturer? What was that?
So I was the Towsley family started a program because I was at Michigan in the public policy school. I wasn't in law school. And so they started a program that is designed to rotate.
Guess
I hesitate to call myself a scholar, but I guess I will. Um,
that's the caption for this episode.
to rotate them in and out.
Yeah.
So it's capped at 2 semesters.
Okay.
So I did it for my 2 semesters. And I really enjoyed it because I brought some of what you learned in law school to the public policy school. It doesn't matter what policy it is, your argument is going to be strengthened by knowing what the other side's argument is. And that's how you learn, in law school, you do mock trial or moot court. You got to learn both sides. You got to argue both sides. And so that came in very handy. So what I did, my first semester particularly, the Dobbs decision had just come out,
yeah.
which was a perfect case study, if you will, because my class was about the US Supreme Court. And with Dobbs, you could start with the nomination process because some people felt that some of the Supreme Court justices were untruthful during their nomination process. So with Dobbs, you could start at the nomination process and then go all the way through it to the need for civics education, because so many people on both sides were upset with Dobbs because they couldn't do anything about it.
It was the end.
Because there were even some pro-life people that were upset because they didn't think Dobbs went far enough.
Right.
And then there were people that were more pro-choice that were just upset with the whole decision, but not understanding how government works. And so how disheartening to learn that way that there's nothing that they could do about it.
That is a really good civics class.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an example for everyone involved, to your point, about how the law works and when it gets to that stage, and that's the end of the line.
Right. And my students appreciated it. So my class met on Mondays and Wednesdays, Betsy. So one week On Monday, we had someone from Ohio Planned Parenthood, and then that Wednesday's class was someone from Ohio Right to Life.
Wow.
And basically, we talked through the same questions. And the feedback I got were, some students had changed their minds on certain things, and others just said that they were grateful because it reinforced what they believed.
As you have all of that experience and the past year and the videos, do you feel confident or do you feel better about where we are and about this administration having some rails around it when it
Mhm.
comes to starting to see court decisions and them abiding by that? Are we in a better place than maybe where we thought we might be?
Well, Betsy, I think you probably know I go real hard for my branch of government.
You should.
And we are seeing now that who
That's right.
who are the guardrails right now?
That's right.
Judges.
Correct.
Um, you
The
s
good ones.
and so that emphasizes the importance of the third branch of government. I completely understand why people are frustrated. I completely understand why it feels chaotic.
It does.
I also understand what happens if you just sit there and let it feel that way.
Say more about that.
Because if you just sit there and let it feel that way, that train is going to keep running and it's going to run over us.
Right.
And then on top of that, you can sit there and just let it happen and just sit there, making comments on social media, just shouting at the clouds.
Right.
That's not going to do anything. And so, what I have been advocating for is no matter what kind of change you make, please don't feel like you have to be able to write $100 gazillion check or have the nerve to run for Congress. You can go to your kid's class and teach a civics lesson. You can tell someone if they say something wrong, you can say, I don't think that's right, or that's not my experience. It doesn't have to be some like huge,
Gesture.
something that's going to, make the earth start spinning another way on its axis. It doesn't have to be that. Because again, if you go back to people like my great grandma, all she was doing was picking up the phone, Betsy. You know what I mean? She was a black woman. Wasn't too much else she could do,
That's right.
but she had her voice and she used it. You know, you look at any movement, it's full of young people taking action. You know, you talk about freedom riders during the civil rights movement. Not everybody was on that bus.
That's right.
Some people were packing lunches.
That's right.
Some people donated money for gas. There's lots of different ways that you can jump in to help make the change that you want to see.
See, that's so good. And that's why your videos are so good.
Thank you.
Because there's such a good way to put it, that it takes a whole lot of people in the ecosystem
Mhm.
who will they don't always have to be right there front and center doing all the things.
No, no.
I think it's a really good reminder.
And even if you look at the progress of Black people in our country, I would argue that we needed Martin and Malcolm.
There you go.
Two very different people, two different different styles, two different approaches. One was in a boardroom at a conference room table, and the other one was outside with a megaphone. Do you see what I
Yep.
mean? So we can't silo ourselves. We have to look and realize any time in history that a change has been made, it has taken a lot of people. Some people doing big things and some people doing small things.
That's so good. That's
Thanks.
so good. That's going to be a clip. So I have two questions for you before we wrap up.
Okay.
One is, I see your videos.
Mhm.
I know that you have a busy schedule.
Mhm.
I know that you do as much as you possibly can to give back, to volunteer, to be present.
Mhm.
How do you juggle all of those things? And you're a mom of two,
Mhm.
and you're a wife,
Mhm.
and you're all of these things. How do you make it all work?
Honestly, I use AI a lot. I do. Betsy, every Sunday, I will sit and use the dictate
Oh, you're
function
like that
in front of
too?
my pantry and say, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. Then I go to the refrigerator, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. Help me come up with some meals.
Do you really?
Oh, absolutely.
But AI isn't putting laundry away and all of these, like, I just can imagine you must go and
Mhm.
your kids are active.
Mhm.
It must be nonstop for you all the time.
It is nonstop, but especially with my videos, I really like doing them, and I think a lot of things, Betsy, whether it's raising kids or making change,
Right.
starts with desire. It starts with the desire to even want to do it in the first place. And so that will take you further.
I can't wait to see where your videos go. Like what comes
I can't
next?
wait either.
I must see TV. You have a ton of content. I mean, it
Mm.
feels like every day you probably have 50 different things you could talk about that happen that single day.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then sometimes I want to talk about something where I'm like, this really isn't in my lane, so I don't say anything. And then I my goal is just to get people back to thinking. And so I do my best to present both sides of the argument,
You do.
even if I know that one side doesn't make any sense.
It's more like there's been some where I'm like, I don't like that answer that she just gave. I wanted it to be this. I think you were talking about the Epstein files or something like
Uh,
that. And you succinctly put it. I was like, oh, that's not what I wanted to hear.
yeah.
But that's good.
Well, first of all, I do like my job, and my judicial canons govern my personal and professional
Sure,
life.
they do.
So I can't be on those videos advocating.
Correct.
I will lose my job. I've worked hard to keep this
That's
job.
right.
And so that's one. And then two, my desire is more to educate than advocate.
That's right.
And so even if one side's argument isn't a good one, I'm still going to tell you what it is because my goal is to give you both sides so that you can make up your own mind instead of just Laurel's 90 seconds on Instagram telling you what to think.
I think you do a phenomenal job. I really truly believe that it is the best content if you really truly want to understand what the legality is of
Hmm.
something. There is nothing else like it that I've ever found. So you do a great
And
job.
and then thank you. And then I think that there are just some basic human tenets that I use, Betsy. A lot of people want confusion cleared up.
That's right.
They and they like a lot of people like to laugh, you know?
Yes.
So I'll throw something in
Your
there.
Valentine's Day one?
18 years of ho ho. Oh no.
I'm dying. It was so good.
Did you see the other one when I was like, but remember, this is legal education, not legal advice. Legal advice costs money.
That's
And this is free and you get what you pay for.
Tune in.
Right.
So good.
Like even I was explaining with the Epstein files because everyone wants to say, oh, they're in the Epstein files. You know what I mean? But your name on the Epstein files, just being on a list,
Isn't it?
isn't it? But if I tell someone, hey, if you had a party and your toilet got clogged, just because someone was on your invite list doesn't mean
That's
that they're the
right,
one that
that's
clogged the toilet.
That's right. That was the analogy.
Right. You can start with the list. You can start with the list,
But
but you got to whittle it down from there.
we end every single episode asking, and I'm especially curious about you because you have generational history in Columbus.
Mhm.
How would you describe the Columbus way?
I will start with I'm a Midwesterner through and through. And so I like how in Columbus and in other places in the Midwest, if you make eye contact, you say hello.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that. Um, I'll be honest and call a thing a thing. I understand the argument that the Columbus way can be passive aggressive.
Mhm.
Um, But I think one thing I do like about Columbus, though, is that there are so many people in Columbus that aren't from Columbus.
That's right.
And so I think as more people come here and as generations change, because from my observation as a Gen Xer, millennials and younger think very, very differently than boomers do.
That's right.
But I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So as that changes, the Columbus way is going to change too.
I think a lot of us are excited for what the Columbus Way will mean in the future. Thank
You
you.
know, I'm proud of the fact though that Columbus is the only city in Ohio that's doing well right
That's
now.
right.
You know,
It's because of us.
yeah. But I also, would point out that women, people of color, can come to Columbus and look up and see other people
That's right.
that look like them doing well.
That's right.
I lived in another city where I looked up and saw no one that looked like me and felt like I can't do well here. So I left. But Columbus isn't like that.
That's a great observation.
Mhm. And even in Columbus, growing up, I saw Black women, Democrat and Republican, doing well in Columbus because you had Janet Jackson as
Mm,
the first Black woman judge in Columbus, but you also had Jeanette Bradley.
that's right.
She was a Republican that was one of the first on city council. So, I had great examples growing up living right here in Columbus.
And you're one now.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of the different pieces and parts of your background, but also what you're doing now. Appreciate it.
Thank you.